Hi friends, I am back today for card number 5 using the Irresistible Blooms bundle, which is part of my card series this month. So I'm going to jump right in, and I have all the bits and pieces ready for my card. So today I'm using a fun color combo that I've not used before, which is the Starry Sky with Real Red. And this measures 11 by 4 1/4, scored at 5.5 for the card base. And then let's see, I have a piece of basic white. This measures 4 by 5 1/4, and then my Real Red cardstock measures 3 3/4 by 5. And then I have a scrap piece of Real Red that I'm going to be using for some die cuts. And this is a really pretty card, and this card features a technique that I did maybe a year ago, and I have a video for that, for the whitewashing technique. So I'll put the link for that video in the description down below as well. And I'm just going to start by adhering my basic white card layer to my card base. My original card is landscape. I'm going to do this card in portrait so that you have a couple of different variations. All right. I'm going to set that aside. Now I'm going to take my embossing buddy and just tap it all over this. So you can stamp your images with either Versamark or the white. I'm using the white because I'm going to be embossing with white, and I just find I get a much stronger, nicer white embossing when I stamp with my white. So I'm going to put this one right here. And I'm going to bring that scrap paper in and stamp one on there also. And I'm going to put my embossing powder on after each image is stamped, just to make sure that ink is still nice and wet and that powder is going to adhere to it really well. And look at, I forgot to use my embossing buddy on this piece, so you can see where I've got some powder where I don't want it. So I'm going to brush that off, and I'm going to take my embossing buddy now and just go all over this piece. Okay, I'm going to stamp the small flower now. And on this piece, it doesn't matter where I stamp them because these are going to be die cut. Sometimes even with the embossing buddy, you're still going to get the odd little bit of powder where you don't want it. So just brush that off. Now I'm going to stamp one of the bigger leaves right here. I'm not necessarily going to use both of those leaves, but at least I can have them embossed and die cut should I decide to put them on my card. Now I'm using the little leaf that's part of this stamp set. I absolutely love this little leaf. I just love how it looks on these cards. I'm going to stamp one here and then beside it. That it looks like I have a few of them coming off the corner. Maybe I'll do another one beside this one, and one here. And I'm not going to use a die cut for that, so I'm just going to emboss that. So that is it for the heat embossing. Now while I still have my ink pad out, I'm going to bring in the splatter stamp, and I'm going to stamp this with my white craft pad, but I'm not going to emboss it. I just want the white to be subtle. See how pretty? Just adds such a nice element to the card. So all my heat embossing is done. I've brought in a clear block, a piece of paper towel, and I'm going to use my ink refill for the white. So I'm just going to squeeze some of that ink onto this block, So if you watched my previous video in this card class, you'll see I did something similar, except that was more of an ink flooding technique, whereas this technique today is more of a whitewash technique. We're not going to use as much water. Okay, so I've got my water painter and I've been squeezing the barrel so that I know water's coming out on the tip. I'm going to squeeze the barrel again because I definitely want some water mixed in with this white paint because I don't want it super duper dark. So I'm just mixing all of that ink with the water. And I'm going to dab this onto my paper towel so I don't have tons and tons loaded on my brush. And I'm just going to, whoops, see, that's too much. I'm just going to fill this in. And that's a little bit too much ink, so I'm going to dab that off with my paper towel and add some more water. And again, just lightly color inside your embossed areas with your ink and your water. And you can do this on any color of cardstock. It can be crumb cake, it can be blue or green. You'll get different results depending on the color of the cardstock you're using, but it's gonna look so pretty when it's all done, no matter what color you use. Okay, so I'm just making sure I've got all of that image colored inside the embossing, and move on to the next. And I'm going to do that with all of the images on both this piece and the scrap piece, and I'll speed up the video while I do that. Want that ink to fully dry before you move on to the next step. So if you want to speed up the drying, by all means go ahead and use the heat tool. Now this would be pretty just as is onto your card with your sentiment. The whitewash is so pretty on its own, but I want to add some color to my flowers and leaves. Because my card base is Starry Sky, I'm going to add a little drop of Starry Sky ink refill onto a clean block. And again, I'm going to squeeze the barrel of my water painter. Look how far that one drop of ink will go when you add your water. You don't want to go heavy with the ink onto your flower. But because you have that white base down, even though you're working on a dark cardstock like red, it's going to look so pretty. So I'm just going to go ahead and color this right on top. The embossed outline is going to resist the ink, and I'm just going to flow it right on. Go in and do the smaller blue flower over here. Now once those are dry, you can go in and add more color if you wish to. Now I'm going to use a little bit of Daffodil Delight and do the same thing with the bigger flower. You want to make sure your water painter is clean. Just go back and forth on your paper towel. Make sure there's no previous color in it or it's going to blend in, of course. So you'd never see that yellow on top of this red if you didn't have that whitewash beneath it. Now, some of these flowers are going to be hidden behind these two flowers because these flowers are going to be die cuts I'm going to position on top of them. So I'm going to clean my brush, and now I'm coming in with Granny Apple Green, and I've been using these colors throughout this entire card series, but you can use different colors, but I must say I'm loving the Granny Apple Green lately. It's just such a pretty, bright, kind of happy green. And I'm going to go right on top of this piece so I get the green in between. And again, where that ink is resisting on top, I will wipe it off once it's dry. Do these little guys too. I'm just going to do them all in the same green. If you want to, you can add a little touch of evening evergreen and just add a little bit of a contrast. And because my leaves are wet, that's going to just kind of flow in there a little bit. Okay, so as these flowers have dried, I've decided I want my yellow to be darker. So I'm going to go back on and wash some of that yellow inside again. The next step is cutting these out with the coordinating dies. So I'm just positioning the dies on top of my stamped images. Okay, before I put my die cuts on, I'm going to glue this onto my card front. I'm going to put my flowers on with Stampin' Dimensionals. Now I'm not going to cover these completely like this. I'm going to move them just off a little bit. Okay, just to give it some fun dimension. Don't have to line up, the leaves don't have to line up perfectly on top of the other leaves, because I think that looks pretty and makes it look like there's even more leaves on the card. Now that I have my gems on the card, all this card needs is a sentiment. So I've already gone ahead and stamped one, and I used the Starry Sky, and I'm going to put that on with a little bit of glue. And I can't resist adding one of our super cute dragonflies, and I'm going to use a glue dot to put that dragonfly onto my card. I'm going to put my dragonfly right there. Like, aren't these adorable? I love them. Just love them. Just going to put that dragonfly right smack dab there. Some paper to stamp on the inside of my card. And that card is done. Who would have thought that you can add such beautiful color to a dark cardstock? I really love this technique. Now let me show you the original card. As I mentioned earlier, the original card I did in landscape, and I also added a third flower, and I used polished pink on that flower, and I used a different sentiment. These are super fun to make. I think these would be absolutely gorgeous on a scrapbook page or a home decor or a frame. I hope you give this a try at home. Thank you so much for watching. If you've missed the previous videos for the cards in this series, the links will be down below. And I will be back with card number 6, the final card of this card series. And it is a really super cool fun fold that is new to me, and I'm loving it. So I can't wait to share that with you. Have a great day. Happy stamping!